Hey there, Alan Mathews here from Classical Guitar Shed. In this video, I have for you some very common musical terms, but if you don't know them, they can be confusing. So we're just going to go through them here. The first term that we'll look at is a chord. What is a chord? A chord is basically more than one note. This is a chord, 2 notes. This is a chord, 3 notes. This is a chord, 4 notes, 5 notes. 6 notes. It's basically multiple notes that happen at the same time. On the guitar, we also have chord shapes. And so these are really just common chords that happen in music a lot. And so then one of the things that you'll be learning if you're studying is chords. You should know your chords if you're going to play the guitar. That's how guitar is organized, is around chords. But basically a chord is more than one note happening at once. The next word is scale. What is a scale? We have images of piano teachers rapping our knuckles when we think of this. A scale is basically just a collection of notes. There is in Western music, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's our basic scale. Melodies are created out of this. You can think of it as basically a pool of notes that songs are created out of. Chords are also created from them as well. In actual music, the way that we hear scales oftentimes is as part of melodies. So, might be a little snippet of a scale and it's part of a melody. So it's basically moving notes, notes that move around. The actual, on the guitar, we have common, just like we have common chord shapes, we also have common scale shapes. And so these become in shapes as well. Shapes just basically meaning patterns on the guitar that are the same here, or you could move them up here. So you could play a scale here, or you can move it up here. The shape is the same. The actual patterns in the fingers are the same, but the pitch that you start on, we'll talk about pitch in a while, is different. So then the actual key would be different, the letter name of it. So a scale is basically a collection of notes. Strum. Strumming is just moving with the finger through the finger or a pick or the thumb or whatever it is, moving through the strings. We can have a slow strum or a fast strum. It could be with your thumb down, your finger down, your finger up, or your thumb down or up. So typically this is the way it happens. Whenever you do a strum, if you're doing it with your finger, the nail of the finger is down. And then once you come back up, the pad of the finger goes up. So you basically just do this and then just go up and down like this. You don't have to do any kind of weird things. But that's strumming, moving through a chord all at one time, sounding all the strings. An arpeggio also has to do with the chords. If we have a chord here and we play it all at one time, it's a chord or a block chord or a chunk chord. If we play the notes separately, that's an arpeggio. So the technical musical definition of an arpeggio is a broken chord. We can just have these 3 notes. That's an arpeggio. You can also you can change the order. On guitar, what we have, and with classical guitar especially, what we have, we do a lot of arpeggio, which basically just means a finger picking pattern. So I can put this chord on down here and then do any sort of picking pattern, and it will be an arpeggio because I'm playing the chord in a broken fashion. But then so our arpeggios on the guitar are finger picking patterns. And with classical guitar, if you're learning classical guitar technique, there are some primary arpeggio patterns that all the other ones are basically created out of. You can practice those if you'd like to. But classical guitar is a huge study in arpeggios. Classical guitar music is made up of arpeggios and scales. That's most of it. That's 99% of classical guitar music. We talked about scales, and now we're talking about arpeggios. That's what makes up music. Next term, dynamics. Dynamics are basically, this just has to do with volume. Swells and fades, louds and softs. These are dynamics. So it can either get louder or softer. Louder or softer. Or louder. There are all these musical terms that actually say what is loud, what is soft, and they're all in Italian, so it's not actually just loud and soft, it's piano and forte, and you don't need to know all that now. But whenever you hear about dynamics, we're talking about levels of volume. Tempo. Tempo is time. Tempo is the beat. It's how you would tap your foot. This is one tempo. This is another tempo. This is another tempo. It's basically the speed, and we measure this by beats per minute, and that's what a metronome does, is it clicks. I don't have one here, but it just clicks at a particular beats per minute, 100 beats a minute, 120, 80. It just basically tells you this is the beat, and that is what tempo is. It's speed. Different from that is rhythm, and these words oftentimes get confused. The rhythm is actually which notes get played or where notes fall within that tempo. So here's a tempo. Yes? This would be a rhythm. Da da da, da da da, da da da, da da. Little jingle bells. So that's the rhythm. This is the tempo. Tempo stays steady all the time. A tempo is just 80 beats a minute. That's your tempo. That's a speed. What happens with that, where you actually articulate a note, where you actually play a note, that's your rhythm. And that's what the musical notes with all the flags or the stems or the white notes or the black notes, those all denote rhythm. So rhythm varies. Tempo typically stays the same for an entire tune. Pitch. Pitch is the actual how high or low. This is a high E. This is a lower E. That's a lower E. That's a lower E still. So these are all E, right? That's the name of the pitch. We have high pitches, we have low pitches. The pitch is where the note is on that thing. It ultimately is measured in frequency. So how many sound waves hit your eardrum within a second determines how high or low. There's a whole bunch of sound waves hitting your ear whenever I play this note, and fewer sound waves hitting your eardrum when I play a lower note. So that's ultimately what determines pitch, is how many of those sound waves hit your ear in a second. Tone. Tone is a different thing altogether. Tone is, it's the how the note actually sounds. So there's a difference in this and this. Do you hear the difference? The difference is in the tone. You can have a very warm tone or a very bright tone. People also use the words warm and cold. So the tone is the actual sound quality of the note. Slightly different from that is timbre. And some people pronounce this timbre, but I always heard that it was timbre, and perhaps either is correct. Timbre is actually what makes the instrument sound like. This is why this doesn't sound like a saxophone. It sounds like a guitar. My voice sounds like my voice, and my voice does not sound like a guitar. Although I know an organist whose voice actually does sound like an organ. So timbre is the sound quality where it's the actual sound. It's how that sound is different than another sound. I probably should have looked it up in the dictionary instead of just going off the cuff. This is what it sounds like. The timbre of this sounds like a classical guitar. The timbre of Alan sounds like Alan. Technique. Okay, this gets into, technique is how you actually do. What are you actually doing with your hands and with your patterns? With classical guitar, this is a big study. With other types or other styles of guitar, this is less of a study, and the technique is kind of whatever, and you really focus on what notes do you play. With technique on the classical guitar, it's all about how do you play the notes? How do your hands move? How do you hold your hand in relationship to the instrument? How about this one? How do you hold the guitar in general so that you can move around like this? So technique is all about how do you actually play the notes. So when you're practicing technique, and we can use things like scales or arpeggios to practice technique, but the actual technique practice itself is how do you say what it is that you're saying? And what goes with that is how do you move your hands? How do you play? How do you touch the strings? How do you play through the strings? How do you get the sounds that you're getting? That's technique. All right, a piece. In classical guitar, a piece is a composed piece of music. I have to use the word piece here. But it is a composed piece of music. It's got the notes on the staff. It's written out. You can look at it and say, now I play this note, now I play this note, and then now I play this note. Whereas a song or a tune is oftentimes some chords and some singing along with it. And how you actually play those chords and where, that's up to interpretation. Same thing with jazz. How you play it all is completely up to you. A piece is typically, the composer says, do it this way, and then your goal is to do it that way. Of course, you bring yourself to it because we have to, because we are ourselves. But a piece is composed in detail, and a tune or a song is generally just either a melody and some chords, or just the chords. Okay, this word practice. We say go practice, but what does this actually mean? Practice and playing are different. Practice is working on specific problems and working to get them better. Playing is just playing. I can sit here and play the tunes I know, and I'm not practicing, I'm playing. But if I take a little snippet of one of those tunes and really work on it, or if I work on if I work on my scales and I'm listening to the connection of the notes and I'm really looking at my hand position and I hear this little thing that I don't want it to happen, so I'm trying to make that cleaner, whatever it is. With practice, you're actually solving problems. That's what defines practice as practice, is the fact that with practice, you're solving problems. You're challenging yourself, comfortably challenging yourself, so that you're constantly on the edge of your comfort zone and pushing it just a little bit and striving to make something better. That's what practice is. Otherwise, you're just playing. And playing is important as well, but you play much better when you practice. Repertoire, however you'd like to say it. This is just your collection of pieces. You've got a bunch of pieces that you play. That collection is your repertoire. Just like your collection of clothes is your wardrobe, your collection of your pieces is your repertoire. And it's important, especially even if you're just beginning, it's important to continue to play the pieces that you learn so that you can build up a repertoire, and that makes it to where you can have more fun playing. And when if you want to play for someone, you have something to play. It also, as time goes on, and you get some pieces that you've been playing for a long time, if you've got a piece that you've been playing for 6 months, well, you get to learn that piece and you get to do different things with it and be more comfortable with it than the piece that you just learned last week. And that is how we get better. So repertoire is really important from a learning standpoint, but also just from a fun standpoint as well. And our last word of the day is score. And a score is just another name for the notes on the page. It's the piece of music. You hold up that sheet that has your music on it. That's the score. All right, that is 15 words for your expanded vocabulary and musical understanding. I hope you have enjoyed that. If you'd like more information on any of them, you can look below and maybe you'll find it there. Have a good one. Take care.